A broken woman knocked at the wrong hotel. What the millionaire did next haunts me today. The moon hung low, its eerie glow illuminating the damp streets of the city as cries for help echoed off the crumbling brick walls. A sudden figure emerged from the shadows, her frail frame trembling, face streaked with tears, an embodiment of despair. She looked like a spectre, lost and haunting, as she pounded on the door of the lavish hotel, fingers pale and raw. Inside, the rich and elite sipped their expensive drinks, unaware of the turmoil at their doorstep. It was as if the world outside was wrapped in a thick fog, and this woman was the only one who carried the weight of untold stories. They watched her through the grand glass windows, expressions ranging from shock to indifference. What could have driven her here, to them the city's elite? Rumors swirled like smoke. She might have just escaped from something terrible, but what could it be? Then the door swung open. The billionaire, handsome but cold, paused at the threshold. He wore a tailored suit but held an air that sent chills through the onlookers. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice dripping with skepticism. The woman looked up, desperation burning in her eyes, every heartbeat visible in the rapid pulse at her throat. She stuttered out her story, how she was running from a man, spinning tales of danger, as shadows seemed to lurch behind her as if the horrors she spoke of were real and tangible. Could they trust her? Was this just another story cooked up to manipulate the generous? The tension twisted like a knife, sharp and keen. The crowd held its breath. And just then, silence ripped through the air, a hush falling thick like velvet. Suddenly, his expression shifted, catching something in her eyes. Fear? Recognition? It sent an electrifying shiver through the room. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect." As the seconds stretched on, panic seeped into the air. The woman stepped closer, vulnerability radiating from her. "I need help," she whispered, a plea that hung heavy between them. The billionaire hesitated. In that moment, a hurricane of choices drummed in his mind: take her in and risk his perfect life, or close the door and let disaster spill back into the night. Everyone's eyes were glued to the scene unfolding, hearts pounding, breaths shallow. With the weight of those who cherished their privilege watching, he finally took a step backward, inviting her in, but even as he did, a shadow flitted across his face. Was it hesitation? Fear? As the woman crossed the threshold, she was met with a world of luxury that felt foreign and suffocating. What secrets lay hidden in the walls of that hotel? What dark threads bound her fate to his? And deep within the silence, a question lingered: what had she escaped, and would it follow her into this haven of affluence? The atmosphere buzzed, thick and electric, as the scene teetered on the edge of the unknown. The door swung shut, sealing her in an uneasy cocoon of warmth and opulence. The air inside the hotel felt thick, stifling, as if it carried the whispers of dark secrets buried beneath layers of glamour. The woman took a moment to collect herself, scanning the room filled with people who stared at her like she was a stray dog wandering into a banquet. "What do you mean you're in danger?" the billionaire asked, his voice cutting through her disorientation. His eyes, once a sharp blue, now seemed to probe her very soul. The crowd around them absorbed every word, every nuance, as tension crackled like static electricity in the air. "I don't know how to explain," she stammered, her voice a trembling flicker. "He's after me. He won't stop until he finds me." Her breath hitched in her throat as she fought against the choking grip of fear. Memories flashed before her eyes, the looming figure, the threats, the violence. "I thought I could escape him at least for one night." The audience shifted, sharing looks of concern, skepticism, and curiosity. Outside the hotel, the wind howled like an angry beast, rattling the windows and reflecting the storm brewing within her. The guests here lived in a world of privilege, shielded from such darkness. Could they even comprehend her nightmare? Why should we believe you? An older man in a pinstripe suit shouted from the back, arms crossed defiantly. She could be anyone, and this could just be an act to exploit our kindness. Stop! The billionaire barked, and the room fell silent again. We owe it to her to listen. At the very least, give her a chance. The woman looked up at him, desperation sparking hope within her. In that gaze, something flickered between them, a shared understanding, an acknowledgement of battles fought behind prying eyes. What is your name? He asked, softer now, almost gentle. Clara, she replied, the name barely a whisper. Clara Dawson. Clara, he repeated, as if testing the sound on his tongue. You can stay here, but I need you to tell me everything and trust me. You're safe, for now. We'll call the police if things escalate. A wave of relief washed over her, but a nagging doubt lurked in the corners of her mind. How could she trust him? What if this was a trap? But there was no choice. Survival had driven her here. As the tension began to ease, the billionaire led her deeper into the hotel, away from the gaping stairs. They passed marble columns and gold-trimmed mirrors reflecting more than just their images. They caught the emotional wreckage that clung to Clara like a second skin. What did he look like? This man? The billionaire pressed as they reached a quiet alcove. The chatter and clinking of glasses faded to a dull hum. Clara stopped, and her heart raced as she recalled the cold, calculating eyes that had haunted her in her dreams. He's everywhere. He blends in, but when he's angry, his eyes, it's like there's a storm behind them. Suddenly, the front doors flew open, slamming against the grand walls, causing everyone to jump. Wind rushed in, carrying a tangible sense of dread with it. Clara's heartbeat quickened as she turned. Her breath froze. A silhouette stood framed in the doorway, dark and imposing. The rich voices around fell silent, and time seemed to stretch like a taut wire. Clara's stomach dropped. Had he followed her here? With a deep inhale, she faced the figure stepping into the light, heart pounding like a drum. What would happen next? The tension narrowed, and a single question hung in the air: was she really safe, or had she just walked into a more elaborate trap? The figure took a step forward, and as he emerged from the shadows, Clara's breath hitched. It was him, the man who had turned her life into a waking nightmare. His face was familiar, yet twisted by a malevolent satisfaction that made her skin crawl. The whispered conversations around her erupted into frantic murmurs. Clara's heart raced, pounding against her ribcage as if desperately trying to escape. Clara! He called, his voice smooth and chilling, like silk sliding over ice. She felt rooted to the spot, eyes locked onto him as panic set in. Her mind screamed for her to look away, to flee, but her body betrayed her, remaining frozen in fear. Why are you hiding? He took another step, confidence radiating from him. You think these walls can protect you? You clearly underestimated the power I hold. The billionaire moved closer to Clara, positioning himself as a barrier between her and the threat. Stay away from her, he commanded, his voice low and menacing. The crowd watched, tension coiling tighter, wrapping around Clara like a suffocating blanket, but the man's gaze burned into Clara with a predatory intensity. You think he's your savior? He sneered, looking to the billionaire. He's just a moth drawn to your flame. You're nothing but a fragile shell, Clara. Her heart raced as his words sliced through the room, exposing the raw vulnerability she tried so hard to conceal. Suddenly, she felt small, unimportant, a moth in a web of deceit. Enough! The billionaire shouted, his demeanor shifting from calm to protective fury. This isn't your place. Get out. Now. The man's smile widened, his eyes glimmering with menace. You're making a mistake. With that, he glanced around, and a flicker of recognition flashed across a few of the guests' faces. Clara's stomach churned. Did they know him? How far did his influence go? Then, as abruptly as he had come, he stepped back into the darkness, disappearing among the crowd, leaving nothing but the echo of his chilling laughter resonating in the grand hall. Clara, the billionaire said, turning back to her, concern etched across his features. We need to move. Now. What do you mean move? He's not just going to let me go. Panic surged within her again. Her chest rose and fell rapidly as she wrestled with the swirling dread. "Trust me. We'll be safe in my suite," he insisted, already leading her through the crowd, voices rising around them. Eyes whispered of judgment, whispers swirled like smoke, but just as they reached the corner, a heavy thud resonated from behind them, a sound that felt more like an isolated heartbeat than just a sound in the hotel. The guests turned, fear replacing curiosity as the door, which had just swung shut, rattled violently. "What was that?" someone whispered, their face paling. Clara's heart raced. The merciless eyes were not just a figment of her imagination. "Clara!" The billionaire pulled her closer, urgency intensifying as he crouched before her, a sense of gravity steeping his voice. "Stay behind me. No matter what happens, do not let fear control you." Whatever was happening out there, it was escalating, and Clara was caught in the eye of a storm she didn't know how to navigate. The growing vibration in the air felt ominous, like darkness inching ever closer. Then, before she could process her thoughts, the door erupted open again, slamming against the wall with enough force to rattle the crystal chandeliers above. A figure strode in, silhouetted against the chaos, and Clara felt her blood run cold. With a jolt, she recognized him instantly, another shadow from her past, someone she believed she had left behind. What was happening? Was this nightmare never going to end? In that moment, she realized one chilling truth: her enemies were gathering, and her only respite was dwindling fast. What would they do next? And how many more people would be dragged into her fight? The tension bubbled, and fear seeped into her very bones, bringing her to a poignant realization: she was never truly safe. Clara's breath hitched again as the figure stepped into the light, revealing a wild look in his eyes. It was Eric, the man she had thought was just a ghost in her memory, a piece of history carefully tucked away. But ghosts don't just come back to haunt, they seek revenge. "Hello, Clara," he drawled, the words laced with a sinister sweetness that sent a tremor through her. The guests shifted uneasily, some backing away, while others remained frozen in horror. "Stay back," the billionaire growled, positioning himself more resolutely in front of Clara. His eyes narrowed, muscles tensed as if he were ready to spring into action. "Ah, the brave protector!" Eric laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. "How noble! But this isn't your battle. She's mine." He took a step forward as if testing the waters, looking to provoke a reaction. Clara's mind raced. She had endured so much, yet here he was the embodiment of her fears, stepping into her life once again. "What do you want?" she managed to utter, her voice shaking but resolute. Eric's composure slipped for just a moment, revealing the rage beneath. "What do I want? You really don't know?" "I want what's rightfully mine." His face twisted into a theatrical mask of fury, each word punctuated with a sense of desperation and longing. The tension in the room thickened like a fog, suffocating. Clara glanced at the billionaire, whose expression of stoic determination gave her the slightest flicker of hope. But the doubt gnawed at her mind. Was she just dragging him into her chaos? "Clara, listen carefully," he said, his tone hushed, fiercely protective. "We need to get out of here now. He's not alone." "What do you mean?" she whispered, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and dread. Without answering, he moved slightly to the side, revealing the tangled crowd behind them. Panic surged as she realized Eric wasn't bluffing. Other figures lurked at the edges of the room, shadows gathering, watching the spectacle unfold. "No one's here to help you," Eric taunted, his laughter echoing in the chaotic silence. "They've all chosen sides." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Conversations melded into one another, tentative, shocked, fearful. The audience weighed the potential danger against the comfort of remaining neutral. Clara felt the heavy weight of betrayal in the air. How could the world she knew become entwined with a nightmare she tried so hard to escape? "Don't listen to him," the billionaire growled, stepping forward. "He wants to play games. We're not here to entertain him. We're leaving." Before he could take another step, Eric lunged, a blur of motion. Clara gasped, adrenaline surging through her veins. Time slowed as she watched the billionaire grab Eric's arm, the two struggling momentarily within earshot of the shocked crowd. "Enough games!" Eric hissed, breaking free and launching himself straight for Clara, eyes glowing with a terrifying determination. Everything felt surreal, as if she had stepped into a nightmare. Clara barely registered the sound of her own scream as she instinctively backed away, colliding hard against the wall. Panic clawed up her throat. She could no longer breathe. Eric was a predator hunting his prey, she was the trapped animal. "Stay behind me!" The billionaire shoved her aside as he intercepted Eric, the two locking in a violent struggle, each fighting for control. "Run!" he shouted, desperate. Clara's instincts kicked in. She spun around to flee, heart hammering furiously against her chest. But as she took off, she risked a quick glance back, and what she saw made her blood run cold. Eric wasn't simply angered, he was reveling in the chaos, a dark predator intoxicated by the fear he unleashed. And at that moment, she knew the real nightmare was just beginning. With terror coursing through her, she skidded around a corner, frantically searching for an exit. But that voice, Eric's voice, echoed through her mind, trailing behind her like a shadow. "I'm coming for you, Clara, it won't end like this." Clara's breaths came in quick, shallow gasps as she sprinted down the dimly lit corridor. Each step echoed in her mind, a frantic drumbeat of fear and urgency. Shadows danced along the walls, stretching and flickering as if energized by her panic. She rushed past closed doors, each one a reminder of the safety that now felt impossible. She skidded to a halt at the end of the corridor, her heart racing as she glanced behind her. Nothing. The cacophony of the party was distant now, a muffled chaos shrouded in the weight of her racing thoughts. Eric's laughter still haunted her ears, sharpening her dread. She had to think, to find a way out. Just as she turned to find the nearest exit, a heavy hand slammed against the wall beside her. Clara recoiled, recognizing the firm grip of the billionaire. His eyes were fierce, a storm brewing beneath the surface. "We need to move. Now," he insisted, his breath ragged. "Did he follow us?" Clara's voice barely emerged, panic tightening her throat. "Not yet. But he will," he replied, urgency pinching his features. There was no time for questions. With a swift motion, he pulled her toward a side staircase. Each step down echoed with the weight of impending danger. The air felt charged, crackling with the tension of what loomed behind them. Clara struggled to keep pace, her body heavier than usual as doubts clouded her thoughts. Could they escape? Would Eric really let her go? Why is he doing this? Clara gasped, trying to force the words out between breaths. "It's been years." The billionaire shot her a glance, his jaw clenched. "Some wounds don't heal, Clara. He's not just looking for revenge, this is personal." A shiver crawled down her spine as the truth sank in. It wasn't just about her. It was something deeper, more twisted. Eric's obsession, his darkness, was not something she could easily shake off. As they reached the exit, the sharp clang of metal sent her heart plummeting. The heavy door swung open, only to reveal more of the party that had spiraled into chaos. People were stumbling about, confusion reigning as Eric's presence loomed like a shadow over them all. Clara froze momentarily, scanning the crowd for familiar faces, but found only terrified looks and whispers of distrust. How could they remain paralyzed when real danger lurked? They were useless prey. "Keep moving," the billionaire urged, not letting go of Clara's hand. "We need to get to my car. It's parked in the back." They moved with purpose, even as they had to dodge weaving bodies in panic. But each time the billionaire steered Clara away from a potential escape route, doubt slithered back in. Were they really going to outrun Eric? That voice echoed again in her mind, a chilling reminder of his threat. Just then, a commotion erupted behind them. Clara turned to see Eric pushing through the partygoers, his expression fierce and predatory, eyes locked onto her. "There you are," he called, his voice cutting above the tumult like a knife. "Faster!" the billionaire yelled, dragging Clara along. But before they could reach the safety of the back exit, something unexpected happened. A flash, bright and blinding, cut through the chaos. A loud explosion of noise split the air, sending guests sprawling to the floor. Clara stumbled, seeing flashes of red and blue lights piercing through the gathering smoke and confusion. What she stammered, her heart racing as she adjusted to the sudden eruption of chaos around them. "Get down!" the billionaire shouted, pulling her to the ground. Clara felt the breath knocked out of her as they crashed against the carpet. The sounds of shouting and the thrumming of sirens grew louder, but the piercing ring of Eric's laughter cut through it all, echoing like church bells in a haunting reverie. Just as she thought they might be saved, Eric stood defiantly at the edge of the crowd, a dark figure against the brightening chaos. "You think this is over, Clara? I don't need to lay a hand on you anymore. This night is far from done." Fear settled into Clara's chest like ice. The night's transformation was beyond anything she had imagined, and the nightmare was spiraling deeper than she knew. What had she gotten herself into? Little did she know, the real horror was just beginning to unfold. Clara's heart raced as the chaos unfolded around her. Confusion and panic coursed through the crowd like wildfire, people scrambling to escape the madness. The billionaire's grip on her hand, urgent and unyielding, anchored her in the storm. They weren't safe yet, she could feel it in her bones. "Over here!" he shouted, veering left. Clara followed despite the frantic shouts and piercing sirens that ricocheted off the walls. Each step felt like a heartbeat, thumping against the raw nerves of her fear. As they reached a side door, the billionaire paused, peering into the swirling mass of bodies. "We can't go through there. Too many people. We need to find another way." The air was thick with smoke now, making it hard to breathe. Clara pulled her shirt over her nose, squinting against the haze. "What if he comes after us?" she whispered, dread coiling tightly around her chest. "He will," he replied sharply, his gaze narrowing. "But I want to let him." The determination in his voice sent a fresh wave of adrenaline surging through her, but as they turned to move deeper into the building, another explosion of sound erupted from the entrance they had just fled. The force sent Clara stumbling backward, and in a flash, she saw Eric again, a sinister grin plastered across his face. He appeared almost ethereal in the glow of the flashing lights, a puppet master amidst the chaos. Clara's pulse quickened, her instinct screaming at her to run. "We can't face him," she cried, but the billionaire tightened his grip, eyes fierce with resolve. "Trust me. We'll find a safe spot." They darted down another corridor, desperate to elude Eric's gaze. The world felt surreal, patches of vivid colors from the party lights mixed with shadows that felt alive. Clara stumbled, her foot catching on a tattered carpet. The billionaire caught her elbow, steadying her as fear pulsed like an electric current between them. "Keep going," he urged. They reached an unmarked door, its metal cold against her palm when he pushed it open. Inside, it was dark and silent, a stark contrast to the tumult outside. Clara's breath rattled in her chest as they stepped in, the door closing with a heavy thud behind them. "Where are we?" she asked, trying to peer into the darkness. The air was stale, filled with a sense of forgotten secrets. "The storage room." "We can hide here for a moment," he replied, scanning the shadows, his expression tense. As they settled into the dimness, a thought struck Clara. "What if Eric knows about this place?" "He won't find us if we stay quiet," he said, placing a finger against his lips. She could hear the slight hitch in his breath. It was almost like he was as afraid as she was. For what felt like an eternity, they stood together in silence, breathing in the scent of dust and desperation. Then, a sound emerged, the echo of heavy footsteps, slow and deliberate. Clara froze, her body tensing as she exchanged a wide-eyed look with the billionaire. He raised a hand, urging her to remain silent. A shadow flickered outside the door, shrouded against the faint light from the corridor. Clara's chest tightened painfully, her instinct screaming that they were being hunted. Footsteps retreated momentarily, and Clara allowed herself to breathe again, but the air felt thick with unspoken dread. What if he found them? What if escaping wasn't an option? Just then, her heartbeat echoed in her ears, punctuating the quiet. The billionaire's gaze was unyielding. "If he gets in, I need you to run." No hesitation. Her heart sank. "What about you?" "I can take care of myself." Just go. Before Clara could argue, a loud crash startled them both. Her heartbeat quickened as the door burst open, and there he was. Eric stood framed in the doorway, a predator cornering its prey, smile wide and eyes dark with malevolence. "Did you really think you could hide?" he taunted, stepping into the room, the laughter in his voice echoing with menace. Clara felt icy terror wash over her. But as Eric's gaze locked on her, something deep within ignited a flicker of defiance that urged her to fight. What was the next move? With her heart pounding in her ears, she prepared for the confrontation ahead. Clara's heart raced as she stumbled backward against the wall, the cool metal biting into her skin. Eric moved gracefully into the dim light, his presence overwhelming, suffocating. The laughter that poured from his lips was like ice, sharp and terrible. "You're not going anywhere," he sneered, each word dripping with venom. Her instinct screamed for her to flee, to run, but there was nowhere to go. The storage room felt like a coffin now, dark and constraining. The billionaire stepped between Clara and Eric, an imposing silhouette against the chaos unfolding behind them. "You need to leave her out of this," he said, voice steady but laced with a tension only Clara could feel. "Oh, but where is the fun in that?" Eric replied, taking another step forward. Clara saw the glint of something metallic in his hand, a knife. Panic surged through her, and she felt the air constrict around her heart. "Stay back!" the billionaire shouted, a warning mixed with desperation, and he moved in closer to Eric. Clara could see the muscles of his jaw tense, his eyes narrowing with fierce determination. "Really? Or what? You'll protect her?" Eric laughed, and the sound was chilling. "You think you can scare me? Look at you playing the hero, but you're just a dog barking at a wolf. What did you do to her?" Clara whispered, her voice trembling but infused with rage she never knew she possessed. Eric's gaze flicked to her, and the smile faltered for a split second. "Are you really asking that?" he taunted, lips curling into a mockery of a smirk. "You don't even know, do you? The games we've played? They were never just parties, my dear. They were preparations." "What do you mean?" Clara felt the dread pool in her stomach, a dark, sickly feeling. But before Eric could answer, the billionaire lunged forward, aiming to tackle him, perhaps hoping to pin him down before anything could happen. In that moment of chaos, Clara saw a glimmer of opportunity. She darted to the side and grabbed a metal pipe from the shelves nearby. The weight felt reassuring in her hands. "Get away from her!" the billionaire shouted, the two men grappling now, their bodies crashing against the dusty shelves. Clara's pulse quickened as she raised the pipe, preparing to hit Eric if he got too close to her. The fight was chaotic. With a jolt, Eric shoved the billionaire back, eyes flashing with fervor as he steadied himself, ready to retaliate. Clara's heart pounded louder, drowning out the sounds of the scuffle. "Clara, run!" shouted the billionaire, but her life wasn't something she was ready to abandon. She couldn't just leave him to face Eric alone. Without thinking, she sprinted toward them, pipe raised. Cold air rushed past as adrenaline surged, and she called out his name, "No." Just as Eric pivoted. Their eyes locked for a brief moment. Eric's surprise struck him like a blow. She swung the metal pipe with every ounce of strength she could muster. The contact echoed like thunder. Eric staggered, shock painted across his face as he stumbled back, but he didn't fall. The moment was excruciatingly suspended, their hearts battling against silence. "You'll pay for that," he hissed, eyes narrowing in fury, dripping with a darkness that chilled her to the bone. "Clara," the billionaire struggled to regain control, but the words caught like a stone in his throat. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind them with a resonant bang, locking them in the storage room. Clara's breath caught in her chest as the reality of their situation threatened to crush her. "We're trapped!" she gasped, eyes darting to the locked door. Eric straightened, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand, grinning as if the world was his stage. "Isn't it fitting? A little game of survival, just the three of us." As he advanced, Clara backed away, feeling the wall close in around her. The chill of despair wrapped around her like a vice, heart racing without escape. What had she unleashed? With every beating pulse, a shocking revelation twisted in her mind. There was more to Eric than she had ever imagined, more danger, more darkness. She glanced at the billionaire, determination stealing her fear. They had to fight together or they would lose everything. But deep down, an unsettling realization hit her: if they survived this, nothing would ever be the same. Clara clenched the pipe with newfound resolve, and with a deep breath, she prepared to face the hell that was about to unfold. Would they confront Eric and escape, or would this be the moment that sealed their fates forever? Clara's mind raced as she felt the weight of the pipe in her hands. She searched for an escape route but found only walls closing in. Eric loomed, a predator hungry for his prey, the knife still glinting ominously in his grip. "You two are quite the team," he taunted, his voice slicing through the tension like the blade he brandished. "But teamwork won't save you. Stay away from us." The billionaire interposed himself again, fists clenched, breathing through grit teeth. His protectiveness only fueled Eric's amusement. He laughed like a man whose twisted game had just begun. Clara's heart beat louder with every menacing step Eric took. She shifted her stance, pipe raised high. "I won't let you hurt him," she shouted, though dread crawled in her throat. Maybe it was brave, maybe it was foolish, but she couldn't stand by. Eric had already taken so much from her: her peace, her belief that the world was safe. "Ah, the brave little girl wants to play the hero. How adorable." Eric sneered, eyes narrowing dangerously as he closed the distance. "Stop!" A voice pierced through the haze of thrill and terror. It was the billionaire, pushing forward again, trying to create a wall between them. His confidence was admirable, but Clara saw the tremor in his hands, the weakness in his stature. A horrible thought crossed her mind. What if his bravado was only an act? What if she had read it all wrong? She shook her head, trying to clear the dark cloud of doubt. They had to stick together. This was the only chance they had. "Let us make it interesting," Eric said suddenly, glancing at the thick shelves lining the walls. "How about we up the stakes? A game of survival." He stepped back, gesturing to the room filled with potential traps, unstable shelves, sharp tools, and hiding places. "What are you saying?" Clara asked, apprehension lacing her voice. "Well," Eric said, grinning, "if you think you can fend for yourselves, then let us see how far that bravery gets you." With that, he threw the knife at a nearby wooden crate, the blade sinking into the wood with a loud crunch. It was a warning shot. A demonstration of his insanity. "Why are you doing this?" More fierce now, Clara demanded, clenching the pipe tightly. "Because I can," Eric replied simply, chuckling. "And because it's time you understood the game that has been set before you. I've been waiting a long time for this moment." A chill ran down Clara's spine. Every instinct screamed at her to back away, yet anger pushed her forward. "You're sick." "Am I?" He shot her a look that felt like a knife piercing her thoughts. "Or are you just so naive? You have no idea what the true game is." Just then, the billionaire dashed forward again, a flurry of energy as he aimed for Eric's middle. But Eric sidestepped, executing the maneuver with alarming agility, and the billionaire crashed against a shelf, sending a cascade of tools clattering to the ground. "Ha! Really? You think that will?" Clara seized the moment. Adrenaline mixed with a surge of determination, she swung the pipe wildly, instinct boiling over as Eric turned, eyes wide, and dodged just in time, the metallic clang echoing in the cramped space. "What's this? The hero has bite?" Eric snarled, eyes glinting with malice. His laughter transformed into a growl. The air thickened with foreboding. She could feel Eric's rage building, like a storm brewing on the horizon. "You've made your choice, Clara," he warned, creeping ever closer, anger twisting his smile into a grimace. "Get away from her!" The billionaire shouted, struggling to push himself up, refusing to give in. Shadows flickered across Eric's face as he advanced again, this time more carefully. "Let us see how long you can last in this little nightmare before you break." Clara's chest tightened. She stood ready, the pipe trembling slightly in her grip, her resolve mixing with fear. But as Eric approached, the dim light caught something unexpected, a glimmer against the floor. A second knife, carelessly left behind in the scuffle. Her pulse raced. She had to act. Would she make a desperate grab for it, distracted as Eric focused on securing his hold on the billionaire? The tight space left them no room for error. So many questions flooded her mind as tension crackled like static. Could this be the turning point? With breaths heavy with urgency, she dashed for the knife. Would she reach it in time? Would they escape, or would this be the last chance to fight? The weight of survival pressed like a vice, each moment hanging in the balance. Darkness loomed closer, and Destino waited. Clara lunged for the knife, her fingers brushing the cool metal just as Eric's shadow overshadowed her. The knife felt heavier than she'd imagined, the handle slick and clammy against her palm. She glanced back, eyes wide with fear as Eric's expression twisted into one of sheer rage. No! Eric howled, eyes glinting dangerously. He lunged toward her, arms reaching out like a coiled viper ready to strike. Clara rolled aside, almost instinctively, the pipe slipping from her grip as she tumbled to the ground. The knife clattered away, connecting with the floor before skidding to a stop beneath the very shelf that had just betrayed the billionaire. Get up! Get up! The billionaire's voice cut through the chaos, frantic yet urging. He struggled to push himself upright, but pain flickered across his face, the breath hardly finding its way into his lungs. With urgency fueled by adrenaline, Clara scrambled back to her feet, her eyes fiercely locked on Eric's wild form. Stay back! She shouted, panic rising alongside her defiance. She was cornered now, the shells loomed ominously close, yet all she could think about was the fight necessary to overcome this monster. Eric bared his teeth, his knife poised to strike just as Clara felt her fingers brush against the cool steel of the second knife. She grasped it tightly, her instincts firing like a well-oiled machine. Get away! She repeated, thrusting the blade forward as she found her balance. Brave to the bitter end, Eric mocked, and yet she could see a flicker of doubt in his eyes, a momentary glimpse of concern that made her heart pound louder. The fight erupted again. Clara was no longer just a scared girl. She was a force fueled by desperation. She attacked wildly, thrusting the knife, calling upon all the training she never had but wished she did. Eric danced back, surprising her with his agility. He tried to reach for the pipe, now abandoned, but she was quicker this time, closing the distance and catching him off guard. The two collided outside the confines of their tense dance, crashing into a shelf that splintered under their weight. Tools clattered and sparks of fear lit the air. Clara didn't relent. She was alive, filled with a fire she hadn't known existed. Fight, Clara! The billionaire urged from the floor, his voice strained but encouraging as he struggled to regain his composure and attention. With Eric's focus momentarily split, Clara's tendrils of hope thickened. She repositioned, knife gripped in a stance that felt foreign but thrilling. If she could just land a hit, if she could just break his ridiculous confidence. But as she lunged again, a sudden movement caught her eye. The billionaire was getting up, his expression shifting from fear to something darker. Was that resolve? Danger clicked into place in her mind, a realization striking her. Was he ready to join her, or had he had enough? Clara! He shouted, bringing her back to the moment just as Eric charged. She braced herself to react but faltered. The billionaire was supposed to be her ally, not a liability. In a split second of hesitation, Eric seized the chance, barreling toward her with a primal yell. Remember, I've been waiting for this! He roared, Clara's chest clenched as they collided, each fighting for dominance. The knife felt like a weight at her side, and she knew she was outmatched, both physically and mentally. Her thoughts raced. Did she still have the fight left in her? Would this dark moment consume them both? Amidst the chaos, a loud crash shuddered through the room. Something heavy fell, shaking the walls and forcing both Clara and Eric to stumble apart. The shells had turned traitor. Would their salvation come from unexpected sources? A fog of confusion fell over her. What now? Where did the strength come from in the unlikeliest moments? Deep breaths, Clara. The moment had come. What would she do next in this life and death game? As the dust settled, shadows rose, and the next move awaited. Would they break free or remain bound to the whims of a madman? The dust settled slowly in the aftermath of the chaos, each particle hanging in the air like a thick fog of uncertainty. Clara's heart raced, every beat drumming the realization that the battle was far from over. Eric staggered against the wall, rubbing his shoulder where he had collided with the shelves. A spark of anger ignited in his eyes, and the room pulsed with tension, a live wire waiting to snap. "Enough playing," he hissed, his voice colder than the steel of the knife glinting in Clara's hands. "This is the moment where you realize your mistake." She felt her determination strengthen as she gripped the knife tighter, the weight of her choices balancing on the edge of fate. "I want to give in to you," Clara shouted, the defiance in her voice echoing. The billionaire struggled to his feet, determination etched across his features. "Stay behind me," he commanded, positioning himself between Clara and Eric. She admired his bravery, even as dread twisted her stomach. She had never asked for protection, and it ignited a fierce urge within her to fight alongside him. "Do you think you can save her?" Eric sneered. "You have no idea what you're up against." "Neither do you." Clara shot back, surprising even herself with the boldness of her response. Eric's eyes narrowed, they were locked in a dangerous tug-of-war. "You think you've controlled everything, but you're wrong. You don't own me." With a roar, Eric lunged for them. The billionaire countered, intercepting him with powerful agility, grappling for control. As they struggled, the shadows of uncertainty loomed, thickening the air with suppressed fear. Clara stood frozen for a heartbeat, torn between instincts of fight or flight. Then, without hesitation, she sprang forward. "Get down!" she yelled, diving toward Eric. Clara's aim was true, the knife slicing through the air as she aimed for Eric's midsection. He twisted to evade her strike, the blade missing him by a fraction of an inch but nicking the sleeve of his shirt. He roared in anger. "Enough of this game!" He spat, eyes darting towards the billionaire, who had regained footing and was preparing a counterattack. Desperation clawed at Clara. She couldn't let him see her fear. "Let her go, Eric!" the billionaire shouted, voice steady yet so deeply angered. "You want me? You come through me first." They were a duo now, united against a common enemy. Clara's heart surged with newfound courage. The billionaire's protective resolve fueled her, reminding her of the strength she possessed within. They would fight together. In that moment, Clara saw what she had overlooked, a pile of heavy crates, stacked precariously near the shutting door. An idea sparked in her mind, bright and vivid against the chaos swirling around them. "Distract him!" she called out to the billionaire, determination glinting in her eyes. With a fierce nod, he shifted forward, channeling all his energy into one relentless tackle. Clara seized the opportunity, sprinting toward the crates. She climbed quickly and began to push on the top crate, feeling the cool sweat against her brow. Would it be enough? Was the gamble worth it? "Clara, no!" the billionaire shouted, panic in his voice just as Eric turned in her direction, eyes blazing with rage. Clara's heart pounded louder, desperation chipping at her resolve. She pushed harder, sweat dripping down her forehead, praying it would be enough. The crate shifted, precariously tilting. Clara gritted her teeth, drawing strength from within. The memory of her past haunted every push she made against it. "Say goodbye!" Eric yelled, rage propelling him forward in a flurry of motion, but it was too late. The crate finally tipped over, crashing down on him with a deafening bang, the force sending Eric sprawling to the ground. Clara's heart soared. Had it worked? She rushed back, breathing hard but ignited with relief. The billionaire had successfully tackled Eric down, and as chaos enveloped them, police sirens echoed from somewhere beyond the walls. Red and blue lights pulsed through the dimly lit windows, painting the scene in a contrasting glow of hope. Eric snarled, crouched like a caged animal, fury pouring off of him in waves. "You think this is finished? You don't get to run." But Clara stepped forward, knife still clutched in her fist, shaking yet resolute. "Enough!" she shouted, her voice steady and fierce. "I won't be your victim anymore. I'll fight and protect what's mine." In that defining moment, something shifted. Each breath she took seemed infused with purpose. The billionaire stepped beside her, and their combined strength filled the air with a tangible force. For the first time, guilt and fear dissipated, replaced by the fervor to reclaim her life. A chorus of footsteps echoed louder as the police burst through the door, stern voices demanding compliance. Eric's eyes widened, horror melding with rage. "This isn't over," he screamed as his hands were forced behind his back, cuffs clasped tightly. Clara felt a wave of catharsis wash over her as he was led away. The chains of her past slowly released their grip. She was free, truly free. As she stood beside the billionaire, relief washed over her, intertwined with the promise of resilience. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely audible, yet it held the weight of gratitude. He gave her a nod, a fierce glint in his eye. "You're stronger than you realize, Clara." As the police led Eric outside, Clara felt a tightening in her chest slowly loosening. It was over. But as she looked toward the future with the billionaire beside her, she understood the fight wasn't just about survival, it was about living without fear. Together, they would forge a new beginning. In that dazzling moment, hope blossomed in her heart, and Clara took her first step toward reclaiming the life she had lost. And for all of you watching, this is the moment to take action. You need to subscribe now and hit that like button so you don't miss what comes next. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Was this a fitting end for Clara? Share this story with at least 5 friends who need a dose of inspiration from Clara's journey. Don't wait even one more second. Your support is what keeps this community alive.